Hello,
Hello.
hello.
Hello, my beautiful friend. Hello to all the people that listen to our recording today. Hi, I'm Janet, and I have a website and a Facebook page called and a YouTube page called Dearly Not So Departed. And it's a journey and it's a sharing of stories of hope and how we connect with our loved ones, whether they be a spouse, a child, a parent, a grandparent, a friend, a loved one, any of those. We can still connect to them where they are now in their new energy, and they are here to give us so much love and support while we miss their physical presence, or in Lucy's case, she did not, her baby was stillborn, and so she did not get the chance to have a physical experience with that child, but her beautiful daughter is with her ever so present today. So I'm going to let Lucy share a little bit about her experience with her beautiful, dearly not so departed daughter, Grace.
Sure. Jenna, I'm so happy to be talking to you on this topic because we have been friends for, I think, 5 years, and we've shared so much together on this spiritual journey, and we have had so many heart-to-hearts on this topic, which we're so passionate about, of death and transitions of loved ones. So my story is, so I'm a spiritual coach. My background is that I'm a trained lawyer. And in 2021, I was living my life, working for my law firm, thinking I had my life all together. I was pregnant with my second daughter. I was so overjoyed to be pregnant. And then suddenly I had the baby, and she was stillborn. And my world came crashing down. Like, I thought I was a spiritual person. I thought I knew all the spiritual things about manifesting. And I thought, the things like that don't happen to people like me. So I had a huge struggle with coming to terms with, like, why God did this happen, and the trauma and the memories and the suddenly being thrown into this situation. I just didn't know, how am I going to get myself out of this? But it's been the most incredibly soulful, expansive, transformative journey. I feel so connected to my daughter, like she's daily a part of my life. I feel her presence with me right now. I feel she is the inspiration for all the work I'm doing now. So it's been an incredible journey, and I just think it's so important that we have these conversations about trauma, about loss, because it doesn't have to be the way the world tells us it has to be, right? Like, it doesn't have to be this devastating, soul-shattering 10 years in therapy experience. And that, even though it has been a lot of work for, I think, me to get to the place I'm in now, it's been such a gift to my life. I think it's made me look at things differently. It's made me assess the path that I was on. It's made me show up for myself. It's made me show up for my soul, to realize the work I really want to do in the world, to have the courage to go for it. Like, there's been so many gifts that have come out of this experience, and I can't help but think that the universe knew all that before it, before it made it happen. This experience put this experience into my life. So yeah, exactly. I'm so happy to be talking to you, and I have loved our friendship since all this happened, because I know you've had your own, big experiences with death, and you were always this, like, wise soul calling me forward through the shit show of the human mind as it tries to grapple these things, and, like, just, it spins out of control. The ego doesn't want to accept it and all that. So good to be here.
I'm so happy to have you in my life. You are such a gift and a blessing. And then to be able, and we had no idea when we first, connected in the human side. I think we've always been soul soul mates or part of the same soul cluster. We've known each other many lifetimes, but it was a beautiful thing. And who knew where this journey was going to lead us? But here we are today. And, it just feels like such a wonderful opportunity and a gift to be here and to be living examples of, yes, you can thrive, you can be happy after your loved ones have made their transition, no matter what stage they were in.
Absolutely. And I think one thing I tell my clients is like to stop looking for them where they're not. And that's one thing you and I talk about all the time, like realizing it was such an epiphany to feel this in my body when I realized it, like that the relationship I had with Grace was a spiritual relationship. It wasn't that love and joy and alignment I felt knowing this baby was coming. And I was so happy about it. Like the first time I was able to tap into that feeling after she died was like this like big transformative experience, because I realized like that's what it always was. That's what the relationship is. It was that feeling of joy, love, empowerment. And I just realized like, why not just walk with that for the rest of my life? Like, and yeah, it's a beautiful thing, because now I have two children in the physical and I have one child in the non-physical, and it's just like it's perfect. Like it's vibrationally, it's exactly what I wanted. So
exactly. And
there's nothing like the hard things in life that like make you shake up and look at your life and be like, who am I here to be on this world? Like when I put things in perspective, anything I want to do with my business or with my coaching, I just think like, I don't want any other woman to feel how I felt in the loneliness and the grief. So like if it means putting myself out there and being vulnerable, I'm like, I'm gonna freaking do it, because I remember how it feels to be alone in this, and how like that not wanting to leave your house, or the nightmares and feeling like there's no one to talk to, and like I want to help as many people as I can.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
And that was, that's been my experience too. And everything really came to a fruition 15 years ago, after my husband made his transition abruptly. And, then I just had to find a new way of being, a new way of living, I had to find a new way to be happy. And it couldn't be conditional on things outside of me.
Mm-hmm.
It had to come, that happiness had to come from within me.
Yeah. Do you know, I sometimes wonder if these things aren't placed in our life for a reason, like that we don't have these, I don't know, maybe we have these soul assignments that we're going to play together in this way. And I truly feel like I know in my soul that I would not be doing the work I'm doing now were it not for losing my daughter. Like I would be still doing my 9-to-5 job, like staying safe, keeping my spirituality in a little tiny box that I'm hiding from the world. Like sometimes I feel like the universe is like calling us, because it knows what we're capable of, and it knows that we're these lights that are supposed to shine in the world. And if we keep hiding it, it's going to like hit us harder. So.
Right. It's true. It's true. No, I exactly. And we've had the conversation, Lucy, where we talked about being these spiritual teachers that we are. It's kind of like coming out of the closet. You have to find the courage and the strength within yourself to just show up anyways, to do the work that we're called here to do.
I think it's like for me, when I first started doing this type of coaching, was really scary, because I hadn't been sharing that side of myself with anyone, hardly even my husband. But it's incredible. And I had all these beliefs. My husband's an engineer. I had all these beliefs. He'll never accept me like this. The world will reject me, and I'll be thrown out of my profession, and blah, blah, blah. And like all my friends will abandon me if I show up and start talking about this. And especially on this topic of death, like to talk about it in a high vibrational way, to say, yes, there's grief and trauma, but you can come through it and you can have an amazing life. Like, not everyone's ready for that message. Not everyone's welcoming that, but it's like some people are. And if there's like one person out there that us talking about this in an authentic way and sharing our stories, if we can help one person, like, to me, that's everything. Because there's just like, this is so important. There's so much suffering around death, and it doesn't have to be that way. Like, there is new perspectives. We can change our mindsets. We both love the teacher Amanda Francis, and one thing I love that she teaches is a belief is a thought that you keep thinking, and we can choose our thoughts, we can choose our beliefs, we can reprogram our thinking about this topic. And when we do that, we just free ourselves and we become these open vessels through which so much good can come, because we're not holding ourselves like this with the pain and the trauma. Like, we become able to attract people, we attract money, attract all the things, right? So like, who wouldn't want to do that?
Exactly. And so, with your experience with your beautiful angel daughter Grace, walk us through a little bit about your transition and how you went from the agonizing pain kind of to where you are today, and what you did to soothe yourself and to be able to go on a few months later and get pregnant again.
Yeah, so I think it was two things. The mindset shifts, which was reprogramming my thinking about the whole topic and about the trauma itself and why it had happened. And then there was the healing work, which I did working with practitioners. Like, I worked with a channel, I saw a couple of mediums, I saw a psychic, I had like lots of different people. I did some therapy called EMDR therapy. I worked with lots of different people that I felt drawn towards to help me with the traumatic memories and tuning me into the feelings in my body and helping me process and move through them and release them. And that was so healing. So yeah, it was like a twofold experience. But what I found is, so I did a lot of like the therapy and the following my instincts on who felt like the right people, my spiritual support team to work with. Like, and it was not based on like someone's qualifications. Like, there was a psychologist that I saw that I just didn't vibe with at all. She asked me all these like list of questions in the first session, and I walked out and I was like, I don't want to see you again. You're not my person. So it wasn't based on people's qualifications or training. It was based on their energy. And do I want to be in this person's energy field? Do I want to share vulnerable parts about my story with this person? Do I trust them enough that they can hold space for me and like be there in these memories of like my daughter's body between my legs, or, you know, in the birth when I thought I was going to die, all those little moments. So I'm fully for like getting as much support as you can on the actual trauma. But also it's about taking the things that we get from the therapy, like the feelings of peace, relief, knowing that, you know, Grace was okay about her dying, knowing that I was okay in that moment, knowing I was surrounded by love, that I was being supported by spirit in that experience, knowing that there's a higher perspective on it, and bringing it into our day-to-day thinking. And then when the thoughts come up and the triggers come up, which they do all the time, because we're human, learning to flip the thoughts in our mind and learning to love ourselves and soothe ourselves and tell the new story and be there for ourselves emotionally in the pain or whatever we're going through, but also the willingness, telling yourself, I'm willing to see this differently. God, help me see this differently. Is there another perspective on this? Like, and knowing that every painful trigger or thought or panic attack or nightmare that we have, it's all our bodies and our minds sending us stuff to heal. So it's not, the painful thought is never true. It's something to come up to be processed and healed. And healing is possible. Like, I believe this with every fiber of my being, that healing is possible for every experience that we can have and every painful belief and thought we can have. Like there's nothing else. There's nothing that can't be healed.
Right. There's nothing that's excluded. We can address that and feel those emotions and then release them.
Yeah, like with what happened with your husband, like God isn't going, oh, that's too much to heal. We can't do that. We're not capable, right? Like,
no,
yeah,
and I felt him immediately calling me forward to be the person that I was meant to be. And he's also always been there right by my side, guiding me even to this day. It was funny, last night I had a friend text me, and she's someone that was a close friend of ours when he was still physical. And I was texting her, telling her that he's still so ever present, even though it's been 15 years. And it's in such a loving, he had a wicked sense of humor when he was physical, and his sense of humor is just as wicked today as it was then. And it's comforting, it's soothing, it's refreshing to know. And the beautiful thing is, they have our best interest at heart, and there's no other motive other than to shine this empowering love on us. That's uplifting and empowering and joyful, and they want us to be happy. They do not want us to stay in a energy or vibration of suffering and loss and struggle.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things I really know is that it's not the conditions of the death or the trauma associated with the death that is traumatizing us. It's the story that we're telling ourselves in our mind about what it meant or what it was, or the lie, basically the lies that we've been programmed to think about death. And human mind will just keep spinning that over until it heals itself. I spoke to a woman this week who felt like, I don't know the details of her daughter dying, but she felt responsible for her daughter's death. I said to her, it's not your fault. And she said, you don't know that. And she said, I didn't go to my postpartum appointment. And then she wouldn't message back. But, like living with that kind of responsibility and guilt, it's just a thought, right? It's like, it's always just a thought.
Why would you want to torture yourself with a horrid thought? But, some people need more time to process. And because I can say, especially because I want to backtrack a little bit. So 18 months before my husband committed suicide, my first grandchild, his name was Mason. He was stillborn at full term. It was just 2 weeks before he was due. And my daughter, who's a nurse, went to work that Saturday, and she hadn't felt a kick in over 24 hours. And so she went to check things out there in the hospital where she worked. And sure enough, there was no heartbeat. So we got a call. My husband got the call. He always seemed to get those horrible calls. And he dropped to his knees and he was just wailing. And I was still in bed. And so I woke up to that news, and it was horrifying. But the thing about it then we're trying to process it, and we have to drive 5 hours away to get to where they are, and they're inducing labor, and they did not do a C-section on her. They induced labor, and she had to go through the labor process. And but there were some beautiful moments in that experience. It was gut-wrenching. It was the most horrible thing I think I've ever experienced. And so right before, on Sunday, she wanted her hair washed because her hair felt dirty. And so I washed her hair there in the room for her. And it was right after that she gave birth. So it was like right after we got her hair done, then, Mason made his appearance into the world. And then we did this thing where we took pictures.
Flush the toilet.
Sorry,
he
my
was-
daughter's just come in. Just one moment. Denise, can you go, please?
Is it okay if I flush the loud toilet?
Yes, you can.
Thank
And
you,
shut the
Dr.
door. Sorry. Working and being a parent.
That's okay.
Sorry, please continue.
But yeah. So, I mean, and that's a precious moment to me. And then we all held him. He was a precious little boy, and we all held him. We took pictures. And so I went a few days later, and got the pictures developed. And I just, for whatever reason, I had to do that. And when I checked out where I got the pictures developed, I didn't notice it. And as I was walking out of the store, I looked at the receipt, and the young man that had checked me out, his name was Mason, which was my grandson's name. And so I knew, like, I felt, I don't know how else to say it. I knew he was with us, with me, with the family. And that I found very, comforting. And that's the beautiful thing about these loved ones, these dearly not so departed ones, is that their presence, to me, I find it very comforting and soothing. And so it was a beautiful thing. And it was just quite an interesting, as a parent, I just wanted to make the pain go away for my daughter, because it was, and it affected everyone, her husband, my husband, it affected the whole entire family. And I just wanted to make her pain go away. And thankfully, she wasn't having, so when I got back home, I started doing all this research, and she wasn't having any of it. And I so admire and love my daughter for following her own path, because again, from a mother's, with her adult child in pain, I just wanted to fix it for her, but it wasn't my place to fix it for her. She had to find her own way with her husband, and they did, and they did what they needed to do. And then of course my husband and I did what we needed to do. But it was just a beautiful, experience. And there was, and then the wild thing is that after my husband, at his memorial service, we picked out pictures, and we wanted to display a picture of him because he was cremated. And so we picked out a picture of him holding Mason. And it was hilarious because my sister-in-law took offense to that. She didn't think we should display that picture. And we're like, well, we're not asking you. This is what feels good and feels right to us, Yeah. So it was kind of a sticky situation. And the same thing with Mason, with his memorial service. A very dear friend of my daughter's, childhood friend, and her family that they're very close to, and we were all very close at the time. And they wanted to donate a burial plot for Mason. They had one, which was a very kind and generous offer. But my daughter and her husband had decided that they were going to have Mason cremated too, that's what felt right for them. And, I had to be the person that got on the phone and told these dear, kind-hearted, they had the best heart and the best intentions, but, thank you. But this is their choice. This is what they are going to do.
Yeah. I love that story, and I love especially the part about the Mason serving you with the photos. Like, it just gives me chills. Like, I can just imagine how you felt in that moment, and the relief, and the knowing that you're being supported, that he's with you, that he's watching you. Like, it's just, these moments come and they just like blow you away when they happen, right? Like,
it was you know what, Lucy, that was a transformational experience for me, because that led me to some spiritual teachings. A few weeks later, I was having breakfast with the friend. In fact, it was the friend that texted me last night who recommended a book for me to read. And I immediately got that book, and it changed my entire life. And had I not had that book, then I don't know how I would have handled, I'm sure everything would have worked out fine, but I don't know how I would have handled my husband's transition.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
It's
interesting.
amazing when we, oh, you go.
It's amazing to see how these things, how our path is kind of laid out for us.
Right, right. And you look back and you know, all the moments where you feel like are the most difficult, and when you feel like God is testing you and it's too much, and like, why is this happening to me? And all those thoughts and stuff. And then you look back and you can see, oh, this is why I was being redirected. And all
Yes.
that time, and I have had definitely moments of feeling completely alone and forsaken in my life. Like, I look back and I'm like, oh my God, I actually had so much support that I couldn't see, but it was all around me, always available to me at all times. So,
Yes.
yeah, I just think it's so wonderful that we are sharing these stories, that we are having the courage to talk about these topics, because I think, especially like, so for me, I came home from hospital and there was like no pamphlet, no like explanation about this is how you deal with losing a baby, or this is how you deal with trauma. I was like looking for stuff online, and there just wasn't resources available that gave a message that things were going to be okay. It was the path forward was presented as like, you're going to suffer and it'll never really get better. Might get a bit better, but never really. You're never really fixed.
Right.
And that's a goddamn lie. Like, that is not the way it has to be. Like, does not have to be 20 years of therapy and misery and depression and like, no. And we shouldn't, as women, we shouldn't have to put up with that. Like it's, I don't know. I just feel like healing is always available. New perspectives are always available. And like, how amazing now that we're doing these businesses where we're creating communities of people talking about having these conversations, and the idea that we can celebrate death, we can celebrate knowing that their souls are still present in our lives or in another place. They have a different role in our lives, but it's amazing, and it's like something to celebrate. And
Yes.
the impact they've had on us is a positive one. Like,
Yes.
yeah. Because believe me, if I had like my perfect birth like I wanted, I would still, you know, be showing up to life in the way I was showing up before, which wasn't very soul inspiring at all. You know?
Right. And it didn't feel good. It didn't feel good at all.
Yeah. And I talk to so many women who have these dreams of things that they've always wanted to do. And with losing a baby, I'm like, well, this is your chance. Like, this is the chance to use this experience for good, and to use it as, you know, whatever you're wanting to do in your life, to use it as a reason to like go out there and love yourself and develop this new relationship with yourself of support and love and connection and availability for yourself emotionally. And I'm sure you went through that after losing your husband. Like, there's so many moments where it's like there's no one around to support you, and you're like,
Right.
I gotta love myself here.
Yeah,
You know?
there were that was the thing. There was no humans, you know, for the first couple of weeks, yeah, but after his memorial service and after everyone left, and it was just me. You know, I remember being in my house and just being totally physically alone with just me and me. And so I was like, wow, you know, because you have all these distractions and all this attention from all these outside people, and then it's like nothing. And so I had to kind of learn to turn inward, you know, and that's where my journey began to learn. And thank goodness the spiritual teachings that I found, you know, the whole message there is to find your joy, find your happiness, regardless of any outside circumstances. And so that's what I began to do. And at the time, you know, because I think I was still in a fair amount of shock for probably about a month. I was still just kind of a fair amount of shock, and I think I just kind of went numb emotionally, because it was such a it was a lot of trauma to handle in a short time when you factor in Mason and then 18 months later, my husband. So it
Yeah.
was, my whole world was shaken. So it's like, okay, now what are you going to do? You know, now you have to figure this out. This is yours, your journey alone. You know, this is a solo, this is a solo journey. And so I began to focus on fun. That's all I could do at the time was to focus, and I could feed myself, I could pay the bills, and I could get up and get dressed every day and put my, now that for whatever reason, brought me comfort was putting on my makeup, doing my hair, getting dressed. Those were the three things that I absolutely could do.
And I tell women all the time, particularly when they're having like panic attacks and nightmares, I'm like, and they're like, I can't get out of this. I'm like, no, you're getting out of this. You're showing up every day. You're like having a shower, you're brushing your teeth, you're putting your socks on, like you are doing this. This is doing it. And in those, I mean, we have to remember these are like probably the most traumatic things that will happen in our lifetimes. Like losing a spouse to suicide, losing a baby, like they're big. Even my grandmother who passed away in her 80s, who lived through losing her home, war, death of her husband in her 30s, leaving her with 4 children, flooding of her property. Like she lived through a lot of things, but losing her baby who fell in the swimming pool and drowned, that topped everything. That was the biggest thing that happened in her life. So I think when we're going through this, we have to remember, like, it doesn't get harder than this. This is, you know, at the top of the trauma experiences in the human experience. So, yeah, it's like if you're even, you know, functioning in the most basic way, like, give yourself a round of applause because, like, that's really good, and it's gonna get easier. And the more like support and help you can pull in and tuning into your soul about who are the right people to talk to about this, like what are the right books to read, what are the right things to read online, like what am I exposing myself to, finding TV shows that are soothing, listening to music that makes you feel better, like, you know, like really listening to your body. What do I need right now? Do I need to have a bath? Like, do I, you know, just need to cry in my bed? So
I know I remember taking a lot of baths, a lot of Epsom salt baths, and just I would lay in the bath for long periods of time. And the other thing that I did, because I didn't have any interest in turning the TV on. In fact, when I sold my house, like 5 months later, I sold all of our TVs. I didn't even own a TV at the time, but that's okay because I was kind of going on a nomad journey to another state for a minute. Yeah, I listened to a lot of music that brought me anything I could do that brought me joy, that made me felt comforting to me. I did. That was my only focus.
yeah, and in that experience, it's like you get to form this beautiful relationship with yourself for like the first time in your life. You get to hear yourself and actually be available for yourself emotionally. And like now that's this beautiful relationship that we get to carry forth for the rest of our lives that was formed in that difficult time. So
yeah, exactly.
It's just such.
And people, I don't know that people who have not been through something like this can truly understand the magnitude of those experiences and how the only way through those experiences is truly to find your center, to find that love within yourself. But I don't, you know, that was like a life preserver. Granted, you know, I had supportive friends and family that, you know, that would pop in and out of my life, but for the most part, it was me and me, you know, but you know, it's like after he made his transition, I knew, well, we had a swimming pool and it was like 2 weeks before Christmas. when he committed suicide. And then usually what we did was a little immediate family gathering at our house. We had a little special family dinner with my mom and my stepdad and my brothers and their family and my daughter and son-in-law. And so, you know, after this happened, I'm like, well, do we go ahead and have this, or do we, and by this time, there was a new granddaughter. My daughter was very similar to you know, within 5 months of Mason's stillbirth, she got pregnant again. And so by this time we had a new granddaughter, and I thought, you know, no, we're going to go ahead and we're going to do this. You know, we're going to have, that's what day, and I knew that's what my husband would want us to go ahead and do that. And then I remember going out on the porch, and the pool, I noticed that the pool water was low by several inches, and I could hear the pump. I knew nothing about that. He took care of the pool. That was something he enjoyed doing. I knew zip. I knew how to put water in the pool by turning the faucet on, and that was it. And I went outside and I heard this voice. It wasn't necessarily his voice, but I heard this, it was like a whisper to, because it was really cold outside that night because it was December. And I heard the thing, in the morning, put water in the pool. And so it was a very clear guidance for what to do, but, you know, not to do it at night because it was so cold. But the next morning I got up and I, you know, turned the faucet on, and it had a little hose that went underground and, you know, put some water in the pool. But it did run the pool pump, so I had to replace the pool pump before I sold the house. But, you know, it was okay.
Yeah. Do you, when you look back, do you think that there is like any resources or books or anything that you would recommend to anyone who's just like lost someone close to them, or teachers that you found helpful?
I don't know. Is it okay to talk? I mean, because Abraham Hicks saved my life. I mean, that was the teachings that I was led to, the spiritual teachings that I was led to, and you know. But
what book in particular did you start with?
I started with Asking It Is Given, but there are so many, you know, which was like one of their first widely published and most popular books. I mean, there are others, but Asking It Is Given was transformational for me. And so and of course, this was back in 2007. So this has been 15 years ago. And there's no, you know, we didn't have the beautiful resources that we have today, like YouTube and all the recordings that you can listen to. And you know, it was a process. I would read their material, and I started going to workshops. In fact, I went to an Abraham Hicks workshop the following April. I took my baby brother, which was interesting because he, you know, that was not his thing, but he went with me. We made a weekend of it, and we came here to San Antonio and to an Abraham Hicks workshop, and I asked him, I said, do you want to go to the workshop? And he said, yeah. So, you know, he went with me, and I was called into the hot seat, which was amazing. And my questions to Abraham were, you know, what did I do to create this in my life? And it was fascinating to hear Abe's response. And, you know, it was just transformational. Again, I keep using that word, but I don't know how else to describe it. And then my second question was, you know, because I had found those teachings, so I began to see things differently. You know, I began to have a new perspective of this death and dying thing. And, you know, their teachings are, you know, there is no death. It's more life and more life. It's just a different. We leave the physical body. It's like we walk into another movie theater. We leave the movie we're watching and we go into another theater. And so But we are still aware, and they are still aware of us and keenly focused on us. And so it was an incredible, so those are the things. And then of course, I did lots of things like you had mentioned with Grace. I went to a couple of psychics. I went to a tea reader who read tea leaves. She was incredible. That was fun. And but more importantly, I knew that the answers that I was seeking were really inside of me. The other thing I did was some Reiki energy healing. I did several of those sessions, and it was super important for me to connect with people who were happy and loving and compassionate.
Yeah. That's one of the things I talk about a lot, is the importance of like picking who you talk to and knowing who your people are. And that's why I believe like throw money at investing in good support and, spending money on people who are going to be able to hold you in this experience, I think is really, really important. Or if you don't have the money, get the right books, like watch things on YouTube that are going to be uplifting and inspiring, that give you a different perspective on this. And I love Abraham Hicks, and Ask and Is Given, the book changed my life too. But I think I know in my community, there's people who are Christian, who are different religions and different faiths. And all of the faiths teach that there is life after death. Like this perspective on life and more life is available to no matter what belief system you're in. And all of the religions teach this. So like, why are we so hung up on the grieving and the milking the grieving?
Well, think about it from a child's perspective. I'm talking, a child that is maybe 3 or 4. Think about it. And, or let's take my granddaughter. She had no clue, she was only, I think, 9 months old, but she was clueless as to, my husband making his departure. But think of a toddler that's maybe a little older, maybe 3 or 4. And if you were to say that so-and-so died to that toddler, they would look at you and probably, shake their head and go about their lives, go on, being their happy self. But they get trained to what the whole death experience is about. So and so I think that's the other important thing here is to, as children grow, to teach them that there is no death, that it's only life and more life. And that those, and quite frankly, lots of, I remember, oh my goodness. So my daughter and son-in-law came back and my granddaughter came back for Christmas, and we went to a store. We were in a shoe store shopping, and there was this little boy, and I don't remember his name. Benji was his name. Benji, cute kid. His dad was in trying to find mom a last-minute Christmas present. And Benji starts talking to me, and we had this beautiful conversation. And I know that, there was something was flowing through that beautiful young man named Benji, because he had these big blue eyes, and he was just, talking. And we were talking about being inventors, because I told him, I said, there's some things that I would like to invent. And he starts talking to me like, just this beautiful conversation. And it was so sweet at the end because, of course, Dad was over there listening to our conversation. And then when I went to check out, Dad told Benji to wink at me. And so Benji winked at me. But I have no doubt in my mind that like my husband was part of that experience.
Wow, so good.
But you talk about, the people that, have religion, and if that brings them comfort, if they're Christian or Muslim or whatever, Hindu or whatever, you've got to find what brings you comfort. And if that brings you comfort, then fantastic. Religion has never been something that brought me any comfort. So
Mhm,
I was on,
mhm.
you know, the spiritual path, and that's what brought me comfort. But the message, you're right, the message is the same, because our loved ones, but it gets trained into us. So
Yeah,
we get conditioned to those beliefs, because think about a world, think if we didn't teach our children to be sad about death and they didn't get that trained, then we wouldn't be having this conversation.
no, right? We wouldn't have businesses. Like, it would
Well,
be,
yeah, there would be no need, because there wouldn't be that trained conditioning of sadness and sorrow and grief and suffering and loss. And oh, Lordy mighty, we have enough of that going on in the world. So
I know, and it becomes like it's not, and I am fully available for holding my heart for the women, you know, and for you and for me, you know, in the aftermath of the experience. There's a lot to process, but
yes,
there is no need to stay there. There is other ways of thinking available that can bring you
yes,
out of that towards the light and towards the reconnecting in the relationship with your loved one. And it's
yes,
something I talk a lot with clients about. Like, I think some women feel like guilty that they didn't love their child if they're
yes,
move on. And it's like, no, your child wants you to be
yeah,
joyful, living your dreams, like
yeah,
being your full potential.
absolutely.
Like that's where they are. So go there, go to that place and hold your vibration around your child's life as being, or your partner's life as being meaningful and valuable and making an impact on the world. Like, you hold that in your core, and when you engage with other people, like, and they're trying to, you know, talk about how tragic and terrible it is, you like hold it. You're like, no, I'm good. I'm good about what
Well, yeah,
happened, and I'm good about my child's life, and
and
like,
that's where you
it's
have to,
okay.
you can say, you know, excuse me, you can go to the bathroom, you could take a walk, you can do whatever you need to do to take care of yourself and to honor and love, you know, and soothe yourself in those situations. It's okay. I just want to give people and say this out loud, because sometimes we forget as humans. It's okay to, you know, give yourself permission to take care of yourself by removing yourself from the situation or the
Yeah,
conversation. If you're on the phone, hang up, you know, whatever. And you can always do that in the kindest manner possible. But, you know, it's of utmost important to take care of yourself.
yeah, yeah. And not being available for conversations about death that feel bad.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah,
realizing, because sometimes you can be in the middle of a conversation and it starts feeling bad, and you're like, oh, this isn't feeling good. I got to get out of here.
yeah,
I,
yeah.
I
And
love myself too
recognizing,
much to put myself through this, lowering my own vibration on this topic. So, yeah,
yeah, you have to be aware. And I don't know, these experiences really helped me tune in to who I really was. So, you know, some people may get it without going through those experiences. I really hope so. But for me, it was my journey and it's been my path. And so the best way that I can honor, you know, and there's been so many more since my husband, you know, my uncle, my mother a few years later, and my uncle. And then I've got friends that made their transition. And so, you know, it's just going to, this is where none of us are getting out of here alive in the story.
right.
So that is just, you know, that's a truth. We're not getting out of here in these physical bodies. So it's so important to make the most of every single day that we are here. Whether you know, have a lot of people around you or whether you kind of fly solo like I do, it's okay. You know, if as long as it feels good to you, and to look for the beautiful things in the world and among you know, wherever you are, to find those things. I do, before we wrap this up, I do want to ask you, Lucy, tell me some of the ways that grace shows up for you today.
I mean, it's a feeling that she's with me, and it's a feeling like, especially when I do things with my clients, or with the business. Like, she sends me chills all down my body. I feel tears in my eyes sometimes when I feel the connection with her when I'm doing what I feel like I was called to do in the world, which is helping women. I see butterflies. I don't know, just it really is a daily relationship. And I feel like I talk to her in my head, and sometimes I talk to her out loud, and I talk to my baby, and I'm like, your sister Gracie. And she's come to me in dreams as well. Like when I was pregnant, and I was, freaking out because I was like, I don't want this to happen again. Like, please God, like not again. But anyway, so I would have dreams about her coming to me and holding her hands on my baby and saying, like, Mommy, I've got this. I'm going to help you take care of this baby. And that's completely how it's been. And when I had my second baby and I had some emergency surgery afterwards because my C-section split open, I was being rushed into theatre, and I remember calling on her to come and be with me. And I called on you as well, and my grandmother, and all the people whose spirits I wanted to be in the theatre with me going through that experience. Like, I'm calling on you to get me through this. I want to be there for my children. I want to live out the rest of my life. So I need you all to come now. And I got through that. And it's knowing I can have her whenever I need her. So I want that for everyone. Like, yeah. And she shines like this beautiful light in my life because they're not inhuman anymore. So they're not doing all the annoying human things. Like my daughter coming in to interrupt our meeting, being kids.
Asking to flush the toilet. I don't know.
Yeah.
She may have had, that was kind of funny. It was super duper funny. But yeah, well, and it was fascinating because my daughter did share with me a long time ago that that Hannah did, my granddaughter did, like she was aware of her brother, of Mason, and I don't remember exactly what that conversation was because it's been so long ago, but it was actually in an email, and she said something about that, Hannah said that she felt Mason's presence. So I do think they interact with their siblings too, so it's not just their parents or their spouse or whatever their kids. I mean, they can interact with anyone. But thank you. This has been so lovely, and I will post the link to Lucy's group and Lucy's work when I post this.
Yeah, so my name's Lucy Rose on Facebook, and my group is Miracle Mamas. It's for women who've experienced child and baby loss or trauma. So I would love to, it's a very high vibing group. We do weekly training. So I would love to have anyone that's interested join me there. And I think we should do this again because we're amazing.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And these conversations are so good.
Thank you so much, Lucy. It's been, as always, you fill the heart with such love and such great energy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.